Look, man, I'm not ready for this. You just hired me yesterday. Come on. Oh. Hi, camera. I didn't see you there. Sean, get off the camera. Ah! Well, okay then. Hey, kids, do you want to learn about biofuels? No? Well, I originally didn't want to, but I know about them, so and it's my job to, tell you. Okay, they're not new. Yeah, see, they're not new. They are, the first time that we saw them, well, actually, it can't be the first time that they saw them, but one notable instance is to tell you that it's not new, is that ethanol, one of the main biofuels, ethanol, which is a bunch of oil and stuff that we'll talk about, is it was the original fuel for the Model T. Yeah, kids, you know the Model T, the first car that Henry Ford went really, really popular with? Yeah, Ford, that guy that hated, never mind. Yeah, Ford originally put ethanol as the fuel for the Model T because, it was simple, easy to get, because, well, reasons that we're going to talk about. Yeah. Come on. Please, I need someone else with me. Come on. It's okay. We're going to learn. My assistant Greg, after helping me off the ground, decided just to give me this little handy tool to make sure I knew exactly what I was talking about, because I definitely didn't already know that. Okay, anyway, so biofuels. That is where you take crops with a very, very high oil content, like the things that we actually use for their natural oils, like in cooking and stuff, like soybeans, sunflowers. We have things that are coming on screen because they're fun for you kids, right? The sunflowers and rapeseed. This thing. Oh, canola! Yeah! Because Americans, have problems with that word. And palm oil. Palm oil, they use that a lot. Oh, green on green. Ain't that fun? Yeah. Palm oils used to be used. And those oils that they used in the biofuels were naturally just easier to use, not harder to find, because America was just a huge, gigantic farm at one time. At least that's what it feels like. And they just had all the stuff around to use all this high oil content, and it was safer to use compared to gasoline. And of course, naturally, it wasn't as efficient, and still isn't quite as efficient, which is why they had such, compared to what we have now, the highest speed that you could casually go was about 30 miles, and that was a huge difference then. So, that compared to now, especially, is slower, but it still was easiest to use, and they found at the time that it was really easy to use on maintenance. The maintenance of oil run machines and gasoline things and engines was often so much less prominent, of course, because the amount of combustion and the amount of pollutants and everything were so much less. Wow, these kids have to learn a lot about the world. Oil palms, the thing that I mentioned last, are even 8 to 10 times more productive per unit area compared to soybean, like I talked earlier, and sunflower. Although the palm fruit is more expensive and to harvest and harder to transport for the different types of things, even though you could run it back on it and use it as a productive thing that could just not be too expensive. And because they are, expensive, and they are so needed and prominent due to their effectiveness, millions of hectares of species-rich forests in Southeast Asia are being destroyed to create palm oil plantations. Look at screen now. Why? I swear, Greg, the kids don't need to know about this stuff. Okay, Indonesia already has 6 million hectares area of palm oil plantations, and Malaysia, yeah, that area that we have never visited, that you kids have probably never visited has nearly as much as Indonesia. I don't know why they couldn't just, give me a number on here instead of, nearly as much, but we'll see how it goes from there. Yeah, that's the quality of my production here. Yeah, I'm calling you out, John! And of course they have to tell me to talk about the burning of the Indonesian forest, which causes 1.8 billion tons of carbon dioxide every year because they need more land to harvest more for the more expensive stuff. The crops that are alternatives to the ethanol that we can, well, rather, not alternatives to ethanol, but the things that we could also use for ethanol, like sugar cane and sugar beets, have the high sugar content that can be fermented and turned old and be processed into ethanol. But the sugar that they can also become is more expensive than that, and the amount of that we produce to make that sugar is already just generally low, and because they're in specific climates that we're destroying, and the starches and the grains of the corn and soybeans and sunflowers have higher yields that can be converted into sugars and yeast to create like somewhat less quality ethanol, but it's going to be the same ethanol overall that we can use, or burned better, like methanol. Yeah, because that's the word they need to be hearing, John and Greg. Yeah, I'm calling you both out on this one. Why do they need to know about something called methanol? There's been a great deal of debate about the energy net yield of the environmental cost of ethanol from corn, which requires a great amount of irrigation, pesticides, and fertilizer, which causes even more soil erosion from the United States. I tried to do a bit where I was so out of emotion, but how? Why is everything so destructive? Okay, the best alternative is called switchgrass. That's just a colloquial term because it's really long and can be used as a switch. It's otherwise known as things called elephant grass because they're so tall that even most elephants could be mostly covered, especially from anything down below where elephants are. That's where it originally was, supposedly, because we've moved everything to everywhere. It's harder to track down than your ancestry. Yeah, so anyway, the better alternative, it produces, what is it? It grows 4 to 6 weeks earlier than corn, which is our main, talked about biofuel, besides all the rest of them that we talked about, because corn, it doesn't quite break down in you, but we can figure out how to use it for everything else. Anyway, it can produce at least 5 times more dry biomass than the corn that we use. Yeah, see that? Dry biomass, because we had to have clarifications for it. It is actually like really impressive. I have a picture of this guy, yeah, putting green on green again. I have a picture of this guy standing next to elephant grass, and it can grow like 3 to 4 meters tall, which is actually, it's actually really impressive how high this thing can grow. I perfectly understand why it's being used over corn for these projects. But the main thing is that it can be used to replace 20% of the US's gasoline usage, which is really is something. It might not be quite as efficient, but is the heaviest environmental conscious choice. Whenever we're talking about a replacement for gasoline, it really could be one of the best things. Replacing all up to 20% of the consumption, especially in areas where we have the high corn amounts and the high, I guess we could even grow switchgrass if we really wanted to, the elephant grass that we talked about with that cool guy. Yeah, we'll show him again. We'll show him again. He's right here. The guy with green on green, yeah. Yet again, the reason why all of these things aren't quite as useful or used at the moment is the issue, is because of, let's put a big dollar sign, money. money is the issue. Money is always the main issue that it comes down to. And the harvesting, storing, and shipping of biomass crops that we would use for this ethanol and methanol to power all these gasoline-filled things that would ultimately save a lot of money and stuff over time, just costs so much money now to use. And the low energy content of the basic straw that we have to collect so much of really is something to consider. The wood chips and the straws that we talked about just have a lower energy content overall, to where we're having to fix the problems of the money before we could fix the problems of the gasoline. Yeah, kids, because you need to know the problems of money. One thing that actually is a good thing that we could properly regrow and use as much renewable, even like over renewable, if we actually got our proper harvesting of it, is plant grown algae. The algae I'm getting sick of these lies. The algae that we would grow in labs, you know, the thing on the screen, but we can just grow it in labs rather than having to have it grow on the pond or anything. We can just grow it in labs. And should we actually find our proper way to make it more cost efficient to do the growing, collection, and energy harvesting of the algae, it could produce a lot of our jet fuels and even its own separate form of ethanol and methanol that could then be used to be our energy source, in addition to the 20% ethanol and methanol could produce to lower the amount of coal and gasoline usage that we currently use in our cars and everything, just as the amount of energy that it could produce as a biofuel. Am I done now? Am I allowed to leave? Yay. I'm done. Okay, kids, I'm very sorry. I have to apologize now. Greg told me that I have to apologize not only him, but John and everyone else that I might have offended or said anything bad against or anything about the systems, because they are sponsoring this. All of the people who might have been offended by my words and freak out and overreaction about the issues that I'm teaching to kids. Yeah. I would like to say a sincere apology to all of you. Can I leave now, Greg? Thank you very much.